Why are world leaders breaking the law?
Hello and welcome to the show with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. Yes, our world leaders seem to be in the dock. Yes, if we take the United Kingdom, for example, Boris Johnson has already had one bad judgment against him, particularly with the Supreme Court suggesting that his move to prorogue Parliament was unlawful. But it doesn't end there. Mr. Johnson is now under investigation because apparently he has a imminent criminal offence of misconduct whilst he was the London mayor. Now, some people might find this somewhat strange, but it is alleged that the businesswoman Jennifer Curie received favourable treatment by Mr. Johnson. Oh dear. But then we turn across the Atlantic and see that President Trump is in the dock. Yes, the Democrats are in a rapid move to impeach proceedings against President Donald Trump because his administration's dealings with the Ukraine. Oh, how exhausting and how exasperating. And as far as Mark and Pete are concerned, here is a little thought. Injustice, it cannot be understated. Those who are politically motivated will make people become irritated, especially if things get complicated and all decisions you fabricated were illegal acts you perpetrated, and that your motions are litigated to find you are truly implicated. Perhaps after being moderated, you should not be tolerated, and from your position be extricated, with your status being terminated, and finally all your rights confiscated, which concludes by being overstated. Indeed, it's exhausting, and my word, Clergyman Pete, do you believe that this exhausting process of world leaders going through the law is something that perhaps we should now no longer ignore?
Yeah, I don't think we can ignore it. I think that there's an issue here to do with how we can possibly expect our leaders to govern countries, or rather lead the government of countries, whilst being under investigation, leading to possible criminal indictment or impeachment, as it's called when you're in power. I mean, it seems unreasonable, and the problem is in taking a particular case. It's difficult because of the particularities. You could say, well, Boris Johnson obviously may not have been smitten with the businessman in question because of her business prowess. It may have been her pole dancing. Yes, she did like to engage in pole dancing, and her owning of a nice flat and other assets that he was interested in. And it could be that other, world leaders, it could be that Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America land. He could be guilty of trying to use the Ukrainian president to get at his main political rival at the moment.
Yes.
So that could be true, but those are the particular cases. The problem is twofold. One is, we have the sort of people in power who we don't really trust. So we're choosing the wrong people somehow. I mean, I'm talking about the problem, not the solution to it. They're the people who we assume are going to do that sort of thing. If we're honest with ourselves, we half believe that they've done these things even before we get to the evidence brought out in trial, if it ever gets that far. But the other side of it is why do the courts seem to have so much power of almost everything that they do. They seem to be brought. It looks as though they're watching over them. We'll say, well, we don't trust them, so we've got to have the courts watch over them. Wouldn't it be better if we could somehow select people we trusted, such that the courts were only necessary when it became absolutely obvious something bad had happened?
Yes.
That's what I see has gone wrong. There's two sides. We don't trust the people, and then the courts are too interventionist.
Well, the public is confused, but let's try and dig deeper and start with the United Kingdom. So Boris Johnson has been accused of breaking the law, but in actual fact, I think that let's first of all cite the Environment Secretary, Theresa Villiers, who said that the issue against Boris Johnson, particularly with regard to his affairs with the former businessman in his capacity as mayor, was essentially completely blown out of all proportion, and the complaint against Mr. Johnson was politically motivated. Maybe we're starting to see the real reason why this is happening.
Could be.
Now, of course, this is something that I would like to point out. So, Clergyman Pete, when it comes to Boris Johnson, many people have said that actually what he did was unlawful when he prorogued Parliament. This was delaying effectively proceedings, taking members of Parliament out of the Houses of Parliament so they could not do their duties for what would have been 5 weeks. Now, of course, the High Court, or the Supreme Court, actually overruled him, said it was unlawful and he shouldn't have done it. Now, the thing here is that in the media, of course, Mr. Johnson has been vilified. But if you think about what he did his due diligence, because he actually went through the High Court and it was perceived that he had done nothing wrong. And then, of course, he then moves forward, prorogues Parliament. And of course, his judgment was overridden by the Supreme Court. So you can't really necessarily say that he didn't do anything with malice aforethought. He went through a procedure. So let's just talk about Boris Johnson. Do you believe that he is a person who is deliberately trying to flout the law, or do you think that maybe he's just a victim of the law?
Well, I don't think he's trying to flout the law. I can't see any evidence of that. I think that he here has a certain aim in mind politically, and he's going for it. And the reason I think that he's not trying to flout the law is that he took legal advice on proroguing Parliament. Let's take this particular recent case. Proroguing Parliament is, of course, shutting it down for a specific purpose, that is to end that session of Parliament, and you start it up again with what's called a Queen's speech. And you normally only do it for, say, a week, but it was for longer. But he took advice on whether that was reasonable, and the advice he was given, the advice he took were from the three top lawyers in the land, so including the Attorney General, and he took the advice that should have been given, and of course, as you say, the High Court in England decided that he was correct. There's no way he would have known that it wasn't legal. To be declared unlawful after the event is, well, whether or not you agree, it doesn't show that he was trying to do something illegal. On the contrary, the steps that he took show that he was trying to make sure that it was legal.
Well, quite. But then we come on to this other matter, which it seems strange because he hasn't been the mayor of London for some time now. And it seemed that this potential wrongdoing when he was mayor, where actually the actual sum of money, it was a sizable sum of money to Mr. Curie's training company business, was a £100,000 award, which is a sizable amount. Now, according to Mr. Johnson, he said that I can tell you that absolutely everything that was done entirely in the proper way. And he obviously accepted that there needed to be an investigation. But it is a bit strange, isn't it, of the timing here? Why is it that this matter hasn't come up before?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, it does seem to. The release of this claim seems to be, and the claim against him being made seems to be all politically motivated.
Well.
And the reporting on it immediately makes you suspicious that it's politically motivated. I mean, why release? Why is the information that this woman who ran this company liked pole dancing? Why was she introduced as a pole dancer? That's the first thing that I learned about her. She wasn't a professional pole dancer. She's a businesswoman. She studied business in this country. Then she set up her own company. And yes, she does sort of flamboyant things, appearing next to a pole dancing, dressing him, revealing clothes, wearing a British flag and little else, to promote her business. Of course, people do that, but it doesn't seem to me that there's any proof of impropriety. Indeed, there's grants she received. The last of them seem to be arriving when she was out the country, with her husband. She is married, and it was taken on by the company, the people in the company who were in Britain. So it just seems to me that it is completely politically motivated. I've said "seems to me" quite a lot there, but that is, I think, the case. And so what we see here is courts being used against a politician. So the courts and the litigious culture are too powerful.
Well, now
bringing down a leader.
I'm sorry our American listeners may not like this phrase, but to that very point, the ambulance chasers, as often the illegal people are often referred to. If we could sort of step across the large pond. Now, interestingly, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has been ordered by Democrats to turn over documents relating to the Trump administration's dealings with the Ukraine. Yes. Now, the fact that the heads of three House committees subpoenaed by Mr. Pompeo to produce the documents within 1 week. So here we go again. So we're on the same basis. So I appreciate that it's a different subject, but the law is starting to kick in. First of all, let's have a look at the scenario. Do we believe that anything untoward has happened within the Donald Trump administration? What's your thoughts?
Do I think something's happened within the Donald Trump? Yes, things have happened.
Untoward in this.
Oh, I see. Untoward is that? Well, the thing about what we can see of the Donald Trump administration, that it seems to be much the way that he ran his companies, or continues to run them, I guess, even though he's not. He's only a figurehead at the moment. But he when he's running something, he likes to be in charge, firing off orders. He likes to have a loyal group of people around him, and he likes to just talk, and by force of personality, things get done. That's his way of operating, and he's been very successful. So as he runs the country like that, however, you find that he says things that could be construed as being illegal, trying to bribe people, for example. He really is just mouthing off.
Yes.
I don't think so. It's quite chaotic. Something's happening, but is it something untoward? Untoward in the fact that, you haven't got proper systems in place, maybe, or if they are, then they're being ignored. But not untoward in the sense that he's trying to misuse his position. I don't see any evidence of that.
Well, the interesting thing is impeachment is rarely exercised in a two-stage political process by which a U.S. president can be removed from office for any kind of wrongdoing. Yeah, sure. But even if President Trump was impeached by the House of Representatives, he is unlikely to be forced out of the White House because the Republicans control the state. Well, the Senate.
The Senate, yes, yeah.
Now, the U.S. president has dismissed this whole impeachment proceedings as a hoax, or some people would say a witch hunt. Now, this is probably where, again, the law is being used by his opponents. But the point here is let's get back to one thing that we mentioned slightly earlier in the program, which is that about the public. Now, whether you're a member of the United States public or the United Kingdom public, surely we're getting to the point where we are exasperated by not only the system, where effectively the system is perhaps not fit for purpose, potentially those misusing the system through legal processes, but our leaders. Because I'm going to be honest that when I look at the political landscape today, I'm not entirely convinced that any of them are really best placed to sort of be visionaries and add value back to business, infrastructure, welfare, and so on. This is surely where I would imagine a lot of our listeners are thinking, what is going on with our leadership today and the systems that are actually running our nations?
Well, look, they're sort of cause and effect, or there's an interplay between them. So we have systems in place to look over the leaders. So we don't trust them, and we report on them, and we talk about them, we do them down, and we pull them down, pull apart their personalities and their private life. And then people who get put in place are people who can cope with that. Like people like a reality star president like President Trump, and people with that Eton swagger, the school he went to, by Boris Johnson, who just don't care what the hoi polloi think. And we have in place the people I guess we deserve, because we pushed them in that position. The only people you're going to get in leadership people who can fight against the courts and their equivalents, like the Senate, which would be the actual court in the case of President Trump, or the Supreme Court in Britain with Boris Johnson. But also we have the media reporting on them and reporting on this process and bringing such scrutiny, but not scrutiny of the good time, no scrutiny of the little foibles and anything, trying to catch you out with anything you might conceivably do wrong, instead of looking at, well, how good are they as a leader? Let's report on that, which seemed to me used to be the case. There was sort of gentleman's agreement. Oh, we're not going to report on your affairs. That doesn't really matter as long as you're doing the job properly. That has all gone. Any sense of trust, any sense of trying to report for the good of the country. Yeah, well, any sense at all. So, with Donald Trump, it looks to me that with the latest attempt, which it looks like it's gone to an investigation for impeachment. That doesn't mean he's going to be impeached. But it's not going to go any further, but you've already got the attempt to tear down the leader. So why are we getting these leaders? Well, because we deserve them, because we've got the media and we've got litigation going against them. So they're the only people we're going to get. Unless you put in trust in your leaders, unless you're giving them respect, you're not going to get the sort of people that you need. So it's our fault. I mean, I know more about the British system. Why have we got all these really annoying MPs who trying to tear down whoever's a leader? Why have we got people like that? Why have we got people who are just trying to stay in power? Why have we got people who are really trying to do what the public wants? Well, we voted for them. Why do you think we got them? So I don't think we can. You can take away from this the fact that these people like the people who decide who are in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, the US MPs in Britain, we voted for them. And in the US, the appointment of the judges or justices in the Supreme Court is done in an open manner by these people who they voted in. So these are people we voted for. We need to take responsibility and vote. And this is the key thing. I'm coming to the key point here. A vote not on party lines or just on which tribe they're part of. If it's not just party, but vote on the people who would do the best job. And the problem is, if you're the first person to do that, you end up losing out. If we all did that, we'd end up with a better quality of person. As soon as they let us down, you're out. Doesn't matter what party you're in. That doesn't happen.
I must admit that one of the things that is becoming very evident with everything that we're seeing today is that we're in a society that has a real strong appetite for being able to analyze, scrutinize and criticize. And there is nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, as you say, we are putting these people into Parliament, or if we look across to the America land, as you like to say, into the White House. But the bottom line is that I think that what we're ultimately doing is we seem to have lost our moral compass, because whilst the detail of legality is important, what I'm not seeing through our leaders is a visionary. We've talked about this on the Mark and Pete show before, but I don't see in the rhetoric and in the policies and in the proceedings about what is the nation meant to achieve? What is a goal for a particular type of country?
Yeah.
If we take the United Kingdom, I think it's completely lost its plot because of what's going on with Brexit. And with the United States, it's a divided nation, and probably more than ever before. And I've spoken to a lot of citizens and business people in the United States, and they believe again that it's an exasperating process where, each term after each term, they're not making any progress. So, listeners, what do you think about this situation? Are you exasperated by the procedure or the system? Are you exasperated with just individuals? Why not let us know your thoughts on this matter and log on to markandpete.com, and we'd love to hear from you. Well, join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark.